President Trump's former Secretary of Defense said in a book and interview that Trump wanted to shoot protesters and called his own senior officials, including Vice President Mike Pence, effing losers. Meanwhile, the committee investigating the January 6th insurrection is considering whether to hold Rudy Giuliani in contempt for pulling out of a scheduled interview. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. So, it seems there are two kinds of former Trump associates who emerge every day. The first is someone like former Defense Secretary Mark Esper, who was on 60 Minutes last night and who wants you to think he stayed in the Trump administration as a check on Trump's worst instincts. But now that he has a book to promote, he's willing to tell you exactly how bad it was. The other kind are people like Rudy Giuliani. They don't have books to promote because they are open books telling you everything about themselves in every waking moment. Rudy is like a human pop-up book, the kind you return to the store because it gave your kid nightmares. Should be noted, if Rudy was a kid's book character, he would be a reverse Cinderella. He used to be known as America's mayor, and now you wouldn't be surprised to see him trying to drive a giant pumpkin. It won't start. I think the thieves are in the engine. I feel comfortable saying Rudy is the weirdest man in the history of politics. Last week, he posted a video of himself on the golf course, swinging a club back and forth, wearing what were either pants he stole from Gap Kids or shorts he stole from Big and Tall. The great thing about these pants is they're perfect for 0 occasions. It just seems like there are no ways those pants aren't medical. The sales lady were like, they're very stylish, and they release Lipitor right into your bloodstream. Then there's the fact he just keeps swinging the club back and forth. Just for no, he looks like a great-great-great-great-great-grandfather clock. Anyway, the point is he's a weird dude, and yet he does not seem in any way aware of his weirdness or the perception of him as a weirdo. For example, Rudy pulled out of a scheduled interview with the committee investigating the January 6th insurrection, and he did it for a typically weird reason.
Former Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani has backed out of an appearance before the January 6th committee. He was supposed to take part in an interview today, but a spokesman for the panel said Giuliani is now refusing to participate unless he is permitted to record the interview.
Why does he want to record the interview? Is he worried they're going to cut it together to make it sound bad? That's what his brain already does to his mouth. Why do guys like Rudy always have some weird angle, like thinking they're a genius chess master, calling their bluff by asking to record the meeting? But anytime Rudy has ever been recorded, it's always been bad for him. He was recorded calling a senator on the day of the insurrection to get him to overturn the results. He was recorded butt-dialing a reporter and talking about how he needs cash as part of some mysterious plan. And he was recorded by a world-renowned investigative reporter, better known as Borat. Rudy records himself saying incriminating things all the time. Before he talks to anyone, he should pat himself down to make sure he's not wearing a wire. Check him to make sure he's not wearing anything. He's clean, boss. Now check me. Oh, not good, boss. You're wearing 2 wires and you have an open voice memo recording on your phone. Oh, Rudy, you've done it again. After he pulled out, Rudy went on Steve Bannon's podcast to explain his decision and did not do himself any favors.
Are you saying your concern is they would doctor the tape and hold it back?
Come on. Would they?
This is not your first rodeo. This is not your first rodeo.
I mean, you got a bunch of people on that committee that tried to frame a sitting president of the United States, and I'm going to trust them? Do I look like a fool?
Do you look like a fool? Well... We've used that last photo so often, I've started keeping one in my wallet now for emergencies. There you go. It's fun when I say, you want to see a picture of my son? Ah! Anyway, the important point is now that Rudy is refusing to testify, the committee is threatening to hold him in contempt.
Giuliani's decision to stonewall the committee now puts him on the very same path as other Trump allies like Mark Meadows, Dan Scavino, and Steve Bannon. The panel today dangling the prospect of holding Giuliani in contempt, saying this: Mr. Giuliani is an important witness to the conspiracy to overthrow the government, and he remains under subpoena. If he refuses to comply with the committee will consider all enforcement options.
Hey, committee, I don't know how any of this works, but can you stop waiting until people don't show up before you start considering what their punishment will be? Why can't you just say before they don't show up, either be here at the appointed time or you're going to jail? And bad news, they don't have jumpsuits in your size because that's not a size. It's worth remembering this guy was the president's personal attorney. Look, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I'm starting to think the people who work for Trump might be, and perhaps this is harsh, effing losers.
The president is ranting at the room. He's using a lot of, foul language. You all are effing losers.
So that's the former Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper. You'd be forgiven for not recognizing him since Trump cycled through more defense secretaries than actors who've played Doctor Who. Sorry, the doctor. I know what it is. I did it on purpose to see how many of you would get your TARDIS in a twist. In fact, I guarantee at least one person watching this segment online paused the video as soon as I said that to write in all caps. The character's name is the Doctor, not Doctor Who. And then, when they clicked play again and saw that I corrected myself, they added a follow-up comment that said, "How did you see my comment? Are you a Time Lord?" Esper was recounting a meeting in the Oval Office where Trump suggested putting active duty troops in the streets to suppress lawful protests against police brutality in 2020. And in the course of that meeting, he apparently looked directly at his own vice president and called Mike Pence a loser.
The president is ranting at the room. He's using a lot of, foul language. You all are effing losers, right? And then he says it to the vice president, Mike Pence. He's using the same language, and he's looking at Pence.
He called Mike Pence an effing loser?
He didn't call him directly, but he was looking at him when he was saying it. And it really caught my attention.
Trump called his aides, including his own vice president, Mike Pence, losers. I have to imagine that's when Pence went into chameleon mode again. You know that thing he does where he closes his eyes and tries to blend into the background, hoping to disappear? It's the same he does when he's walking in the zoo and he sees two monkeys getting it on. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. They're just wrestling. They're just wrestling. He looks like he's waiting for Scotty to beam him out of there. This is Commander Pence. Away team is ready. Energize. So why was Trump calling them losers? Because they referenced Doctor Who and Star Trek in the same closer look? Surprisingly, no. He called them losers because he wanted them to put active duty troops in the street to attack protesters, and they refused, according to Esper.
And I thought we're at a different spot now. He's going to finally give a direct order to deploy paratroopers into the streets of Washington, D.C., and I'm thinking with weapons and bayonets. And this would be horrible.
What specifically was he suggesting that the U.S. military should do to these protesters?
He says, can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something. And he's suggesting that that's what we should do, that we should bring in the troops and shoot the protesters.
The commander-in-chief was suggesting that the U.S. military shoot protesters.
Yes, in the streets of our nation's capital. That's right. Shocking.
It is shocking. So shocking, you should have told us about it at the time. It's also somehow not surprising to me that Trump would specifically request paratroopers, although it also wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't know what that word meant. I mean, maybe he knows it's parachutes, or maybe he thinks it's the two guys from Chips. Punch and John, a finer pair of troopers you'll never see. We love Punch and John. The great Eric Estrada. I met him once at a charity golf tournament, and I said to him, Eric, I love your show, but why are there never any delicious chips? It seems like false advertising. And he said, are you joking? And I said, I wish I was, Eric. I wish I was, but I'd love to see Chips if the show was called Chips. And he says, Chips is an acronym. And I just laughed because I don't know what that word means. I don't know what it means, so I just laughed. I wandered off. Trump was an aspiring authoritarian who wanted to use the power of the state to violently suppress dissent and keep himself in power. We don't need any more evidence to prove that these two statements are true, but we keep getting it anyway, and yet his closest confidants are refusing to comply with a lawful investigation into Trump's attempted coup. If Rudy did show up for the interview, I imagine it would go something like this.
Do I look like a fool?
Yes.
There's been a closer look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, get vaccinated. We love you.